What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the What the Hype water cooler. I'm here with Eric. I'm Laura, and we are going to be talking about season 4 of The Boys, episode 4, Wisdom of the Ages. And I would say we definitely get, I think, quite a bit of information this episode. Would you say so, Eric?
Yeah, a lot happens. What wisdom, though? What wisdom do we think?
I think a lot of the wisdom that we got was that many of these characters are products of the environment in which they were created and raised in, which I think is super relevant to Homelander. And because that's really where we start, I think that's where we can pick up our reaction is just everything that happens with Homelander at the Project Odessa lab hub space.
There was a homecoming of sorts.
Yeah, you could say that. A homecoming for Homelander. So we start out with him showing up with an ice cream cake that he very ominously presents to the staff at Project Odessa. And it's pretty clear early on, everyone knows that they're up Schitt's Creek.
Everyone's
basically.
Dead.
Yeah.
Everyone is getting. He was there with the cake. There was this very clear sign that everyone was there was dead. There's one survivor of note, but yeah. Everyone, there. Homelander, we know this about him. He kind of plays with his food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I mean, not to say it doesn't justify anything, but I think what I love about what the show does with Homelander is we learn more and more context over time that explains why he is the way he is.
Sure.
None of it justifies it, of course, because plenty of people go through horrible, traumatic things and don't come out the other end like perpetuating that cycle.
I think this is what the wisdom is that this is what that looks like for people that never evolve past their programming. The only other wisdom I got from the episode is pretty much everybody must suffer. Like, and will. And that's what I've learned from this. Everyone must suffer and will suffer. So much. Every character, the ones we love and the ones we don't in this episode, were shown to be in some kind of cycle of hell of kind of their own making. And that's actually on par with what happens, I think, in the show. And this season in particular is doing, I think, making a more concentrated effort. Tell me if you think I'm on to something here, of like having that more grounded emotional drama. Things like Huey's dad, not all the drama has to come from what soup is the next big bad, kind of a thing. This feels like there's deliberately more interpersonal stuff between Colin and Frenchie, Huey and his mom. There's a lot of stuff that, doesn't have much, if anything, to do with soups.
Yeah, and I think they needed that because the first 3 episodes of the season were really about establishing like the political landscape and the climate of everything going on at Vought and with the soups. And I think they kind of had to ground it this episode to really highlight the impacts on all these characters interpersonally. But you're completely right. I mean, everyone's going through it in this one. And that includes Butcher as well. I mean, we're seeing the physical symptoms of, the brain poisoning that he got from V really starting to act up in this episode in a more, I think, overt way than we've seen before. I mean, they're like all over his body now. It's not just at his temple.
Well, and I'm wondering if that's just the side effect of the Temp V or the V that he later admitted to Huey was injecting himself with, like, because we're not sure how that stretchy arm Jesus guy died strictly.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, is there some kind of latent other power, or can he... One thing that I don't hate, but I don't love about this show, I'm kind of neutral on it, is when soups have the same power as each other. And so I'm like, how many Victoria Newmans are there out here? There's Marie Moreau from Gen V, who's probably going to be in this season. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden everyone can just explode everybody. I mean, it means more money for the blood budget, but I don't know. But there's something more going on with Butcher than just aging. Butcher and
Oh, yeah.
Homelander have been brilliantly set up as a couple, as a duo. You can't have one without the other. They've been set up as these opposites. Time and again, they're battling each other or letting each other live. Homelander, they're both raising Ryan or trying to do right by him. Like, it's so brilliant. And this season is the season where Homelander is really coming to grips with his mortality, and Butcher is more mortal than he's ever been, or more aware of his own mortality. And so it's this brilliant thing, but they're still doing something else. There's the stuff crawling through Butcher's veins. I'm like, that's not just a brain tumor brought on by Temp V. There's something more going on.
Yeah, and I do think it's really funny that he tries to tell Huey towards the end of the episode, no, I don't have any powers, but we're like, bro, you exploded Ezekiel and you blacked out when you did it. You just woke up and this man was just 1,000 pieces all over the walls and the ceiling around you.
Hanging from the ceiling fan, yeah.
Yeah, and like you don't even know how you did it. So it's obvious there's definitely something more at play here. But while we're talking about V and the administration of V, I also want to talk about Huey's dad. I think it was perfect timing because I was just thinking throughout the first 3 episodes, okay, there's no way they can just pay Simon Pegg to lay in a bed every episode. So he's back.
It'd be fun if he were the new villain. If he were the villain of this season, would be great. Yeah, big surprise.
Yeah, for sure.
Still has not spoken a word, though. Maybe they pay him less.
I don't know. I feel like at this point, if you're Simon Pegg, there's a going rate for that. So they might have just shot a bunch of stuff with him in one sitting that they're able to just drag out throughout the entire season, or at least the part of the season that he's in the hospital.
I was prepared to be upset by Huey's choice to not revive his dad after all of this, after truly the making up with A-Train bit was lovely. It was a long time coming. We already have gotten a genuine apology from A-Train last season that was like the real deal, and Huey still wouldn't forgive him, so I'm glad they're square. But for Huey to be sort of convinced that he shouldn't use it after getting the V, I was prepared to like talk with you about how pissed off I was, and then it turns out somebody else made the decision for him.
It was his mom, right? That was like the vibe I was getting.
It weirdly wasn't shown. Like, I mean, he's lurching forward. She's like moving in to hug him. She has her hand near his pocket, and then like, but it's weirdly showing her from like far away when the is going through the IV. So like, I don't know why they shot it that way, but it is. I think it was
intentional because somebody did it who wasn't Huey, and I think the prime suspect at this point would be his mom. Also because we still don't know a ton about her. I mean, she opened up to Huey in the last episode, but it still kind of feels like there's something missing. And it almost makes me wonder, I mean, she works for Vought. We had that confirmed in like episode 2. So, I mean, did she manage to get her hands on V herself? And maybe was her plan the entire time to do this? But
then why this whole rigmarole of we're taking him off life support? Like V is not a miracle cure to everything. Like why get Simon Pegg, why get Huey's father that much closer to death before administering it? And then, in fact, why pull the plug at all? If you were ever planning to do the V thing with him, why would you it just doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I don't trust Huey's mom. I don't think he does either, but
I don't think we're supposed to.
It's impossible to know what her motives are, really.
Yeah, it really is. And also just why now? And I mean, Huey had no idea that they were even talking. All of a sudden she's showing up and saying, your dad gave me power of attorney and gave me control of everything, even though I haven't seen you since you were 6 years old. It's sketch. For sure.
It's very sketch.
Yeah.
There's so much more going on. I want to talk about Sage.
Yeah. Oh, man. That we got an answer to what the heck that bloody instrument was on her table last episode in this one. And it's that she's like self-lobotomizing to give herself like peace and freedom for a couple of hours before her brain
don't you
regenerates.
Ever need to unwind? I know I do. I sure need to unwind for a few hours after a stressful day.
Yeah, I don't generally beat an ice pick into my skull to do that.
Probably smart. Yeah. But wild, it shows how powers are a blessing or curse. A lot of like the powers or even V is value neutral. That's like a theme that continues to be kind of pushed home, is that it's all about the people that are being given sort of this space and what people are doing to other people that kind of makes the monsters.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think, I mean, since we're talking about Sage, we just continue to see her play the chess master, not just with the American people, but with the Supes themselves, with Vought. I mean, we see her setting up Firecracker to do this big takedown of Starlight, but then Annie's medical records are leaked. It comes out that she's had this abortion, and it leads to Annie beating the absolute crap out of Firecracker on live TV, which simultaneously like elevates Firecracker's profile with people
and lets her be a victim.
Yes. But also does, I think, more work that Sage is trying to do of sowing discord amongst the Supes and amongst the Seven and everyone who works at Vought. And she also had that little moment because I think Firecracker had said something to her like, I thought you were uppity before, but you're really cool. And
she's like, how's this for uppity bitch
yeah,
or something?
she's like watching her get the crap kicked out of her on TV. So it's like Sage definitely has her own MO. It's not just, we talked about this before. It's not just about helping Homelander achieve his vision. She has her own, for sure. She's terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, when Starlight was enacting her just revenge, she said, first pebble down the mountain. That was Sage watching the TV, and it was like, oh, she's playing a bigger game.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you got the girl next door, Soup, to lose it in front of the world.
I think Annie might be the only real hero of this show. Thoughts? Like it just seems like, especially with the attention that's paid on Starlight's abortion and having this medical procedure be revealed to the world, like you're losing control of your own narrative. Her telling about how her mother won't return her calls, how regardless if people are judging me or they agree with my decision, when they see me on the street, that's all they're going to think about me. And then the reveal that Hughie knew about it, that they together as a couple. And here's the thing, it's not even that Starlight didn't want to bring more superheroes into the world, which is what I thought her motives would have been. I never was expecting us to get a conversation about her motives.
Right.
But in fact, she just said, I wasn't ready. And that shows that a lot is going on with life. It's a tumultuous time. People need to have the bodily autonomy to be able to make these kinds of decisions. And the fact that the show spent so much time sort of in Annie's head about it and allowed us to show that she had been done wrong or wrong had been done to her, I think is incredibly important. But she's probably the only redeemable hero in the show.
Yeah, I mean, she's the moral compass of the show, and she always has been. But I also love that this season they're taking the opportunity to say, hey, even the moral compass is flawed and has done things that are really, really mean to other people. And there are consequences for bullying, even if it's something you did when you were really young. So I appreciate that the show weaves a lot of nuance into these characters. I mean, even with Homelander, who is just like objectively awful and we all hate him, there are times that I feel sorry for him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The idea, having the character of Barbara, who's, at the end, the sole survivor, saying that they worked hard to ingrain in him a need for love and compassion and making him human. And it's like, do the ends justify the means here? Because Homelander's literal only connection with humanity is his need for love and approval. And it is the only thing that has been shown to actually ground him and prevent him from killing millions of people. And so it's like, wow, that's really interesting. And the fact that he let her live is like, well, if I killed her, no one would be proud of me. It's so twisted. But there's a lot going on with it.
Yeah, and he's been struggling with that multiple seasons at this point, the need for attention and love and pride in him. And I mean, he ultimately tries to project all of that onto Ryan. But speaking of Barbara and speaking of Ryan, what I found so interesting, there's this moment where Barbara tells him, you killed your birth mother, you lasered your way out of her
I'm
womb.
so glad you mentioned this. This is what Vogelbaum tells, is it Butcher?
Mm-hmm.
Or he tells two versions of events, and one of them is that Becca died in childbirth pretty much the same way that we find out Homelander really came into the world.
Yeah. Well, and what's funny is that is how Becca dies in the comics. Baby Ryan just laser eyes his way out of her womb.
So there's no
And
Becca in like present day in the boys comic?
mm-mm.
All right, that's an improvement.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna read these comics.
Honestly, the show is so much better. You don't need to read the comics. I just always think it's interesting when they put little Easter eggs in there to be like, this is a nod if you've read it, you know.
Yeah.
You'll pick up on it, but it's not that big of a deal.
No, that's good. Something that I want to talk about before we wrap up is between last episodes and this episode, a lot happened in the social media sphere. The entire right wing, it seems, has learned that this is not a show for them, or it's a show against them, or that, regarding I think largely due to scenes that happened at TruthCon, which we talked about on our last water cooler. It seems like people are starting to realize that the show is laughing at them, not with them. And my problem is I still don't know where the show's ultimate moral compass is. It's funny when people who are like pro-fascism get made fun of on the show, but for instance, in this episode, Laura, we still saw a man get burned in an oven. That is Nazi imagery if you've ever seen it. And that the show's gratuitous desire to showcase the worst of humanity is not condemning it, right? You don't need to show it to condemn. You can say it's wrong. The fact that the show is showing it shows that it's dangerously playing. It's still giving people what they want to see. Sick, people who need some help. I have a problem with it. I really do.
Yeah, I can understand that. I feel like the point of the show, and I mean, this is coming from someone who likes the show, so, it's my own take, but I feel like the point of it is to force you to bear witness to the horror of what's going on in this world. And it's obviously, it's like a hyper realization of the world that we're in now. Eric Kripke, who is the showrunner of this, has come out and made it very clear that for like the MAGA hats out there, if they're just now realizing Homelander is not the hero, that's on them. And that he's, he recognizes the show is many, many things, but subtle it is not. So it's pretty clear to me that the show is largely making fun of and providing social commentary on how corrupt the entire system is. But there is a special commentary specifically for the fascist leaning MAGA super fans out there who, you're totally right, it was only towards the end of season 3 that some of those people started picking up on the idea that, oh wait, Homelander's not the hero, I'm not supposed to like Homelander. And they're really laying it on thick at this point. But yeah, I can understand why it's uncomfortable. Yeah.
Well, like even just sorry, who's the new girl that did the thing on Starlight?
The new girl that did the mean
far
Firecracker?
right? She had her TV show Firecracker. I was like, it's not Starcracker. Like, what the Firecracker? I'm sorry, Firecracker. Getting out, trying to get out ahead of her non-consensual rape of a minor, in this episode by saying that that young man he was put in my life to lead me on a path of righteousness, is literally how you own this horrible act on a child while you confuse the other side of doing harmful things to children. And it's like the internal logic of it doesn't make any sense whatsoever under scrutiny. And that's the
No.
point, that you're supposed to like, but I just know there's a swath of audience members out there who's like, oh, what she's saying makes sense. What Firecracker's saying makes sense. And it's literally like,
Unfortunately,
you're part of the problem.
yeah. I mean, unfortunately, there are very real examples of prominent figures using that exact logic to explain how taking part in, you know, literal crimes against children led them to the light, right, in order to redeem
Yeah.
themselves. So, I mean, I think what's so interesting about Firecracker's character is a lot of her dialogue is straight uplifted from real life and real things that people of her ilk have done. I think what's so interesting is early on when they first introduced her, a lot of her dialogue was straight up Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
And they were really trying to play up that whole her trying to be a foil to Starlight, basically. And they kind of flipped it right on its head with the revelation that, hey, Starlight actually bullied her when they were children. And, you know, she definitely still has that motivation to go after her because of those things. But it wasn't simply Firecracker trying to join the Seven or trying to become more prominent just to boost her own profile. She's had this vendetta against Starlight since they were like 11 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it helps. It helps to kind of contextualize that. What do we think is next for Starlight? She is in the doghouse now for everything that she did. Unfortunately, it was caught on camera. The president-to-be has had to distance himself from her. Victoria Newman is out there not condoning Starlight. It felt so good to watch her kind of try and do that, but unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be easier for the against Soup's cause.
No, not at all. I mean, we already heard Singer talking about how his legislation is going to die because of what came out about Starlight, even though what came out about her has nothing to do with that legislation. But he's going to lose like what 20 or so Republican votes over it, probably more. So yeah, she's in for a rough run, I think for sure. And I also don't think it's the last time that people are going to be blackmailed or that material is going to come out about them. It seems like that is a theme that we're starting to see in this season. One closing thought I wanted to touch on with you, because I know you were really into Gen V, wanted to see how you felt about the Gen V representation that happened in this episode.
I mean, it's next to nothing. It's a channel flipping thing as they continue to tease. I'm starting to think they're like end of season kind of fodder, or like they're holding it off. Right now there's so much going on with the adults. Let's just say that the students aren't being given the space, but it's unclear. I tend to think so. During Gen V, they woke up at the end of it in a room with no door, I guess. And I thought that was pretty clearly like sort of almost like a mind prison, like in Kate's head or of Kate's doing. That's kind of my thoughts on that. So they got to figure out how the hell they're going to get out of there, like out of there. And how can the boys show showcase how they're getting out of there? There's just not enough time to kind of explain even the situation that Gen V ended on with them. So I'm not surprised, I guess, that we haven't seen those students, but I'm just excited for it to finally happen. One, because I like Gen V, and two, I want to see how they do it. Like, I want to actually see what role they have to play this season.
I just assumed they were being held at Vought, because Vought is massive, and we know that they have containment chambers there. Like, they kept Maeve in one last season, so
yeah,
hers
at least had a door. They were like, we can fix this. Next time, no doors.
Right, exactly. I just assumed that they're in Vought right now, and eventually someone's going to figure out they're there and help get them out, or they're going to break out somehow. But I agree with you. It at this point, it definitely feels like we're not quite getting the full representation of how Gen V impacted and informed the plot for this season, but we're halfway through. In the weeks ahead, we may get more, hopefully.
I'm ready for it. Really, the Will Ferrell cameo as Brink.
Yeah, it was so good.
That was the number one thing that it was like, oh, they have something like in store for it. But yeah, the show is endlessly fascinating. I think that it's get more interesting than it's ever been, kind of. Or maybe that's just how it feels because I'm like watching currently now because I'm caught up. So yeah, I can't speak to what the experience was watching live previous seasons, but this one's been great so far.
Yeah, this one's been really, really good so far. Definitely recommend, if you haven't checked out The Boys yet, please do. It is such a good show and provides so much commentary about the world that we live in. Obviously, we couldn't have covered nearly, everything that happened in this episode because, as Eric and I alluded to earlier on, there was a lot going on. But we will be doing a season 4 recap full episode on our feed once season 4 wraps, so keep an eye out for that. Also be sure to follow us on social media. We are on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram as What the Hype Podcast, and our website is whatthehypepodcast.com, which is where you can find links to all of the things that we are on. You can also reach out to us here in the comments on YouTube or at whatthehypepodcast@gmail.com if you want to get in touch. But Eric, thank you so much for joining me today. I love doing these recaps.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, we're gonna
reaction videos.
Keep them coming. Keep them coming. Let's end on a riddle. Okay. I had a riddle for you. I forget where I heard this, but it's relevant.
I'm bad at riddles.
No. It's good. It's good. It's good. Okay. You're in a room with no doors and no windows. You wake to find yourself in a room with no doors, no windows. How do you get out?
Am I like trying to pull off like a prison heist and carving my way out of the floor?
Maybe work, maybe not. The simple answer to how do you get out of a room with no windows and doors is the same way you got in. Which is? Who knows?
Oh, right? I see. So the answer is you don't.
I think the correct answer is that a circle has no beginning. It's a very Ravenclaw type kind of thing.
No, it is. It is. Yeah. Don't have my Ravenclaw brain on at the moment.
I don't know where I heard that. No, it's good. Thanks for doing this with me. This was fun. We'll keep watching The Boys.
This was great. Thanks, y'all. We'll see you next time. And don't forget to check out this Friday. We're going to have our Bridgerton Season 3.5 full recap and reaction up on the feed. So check that out when it comes out Friday. But
oh, yeah.
Yeah. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.